So Tim Pauley and Jay Couse are going to present together. Jay is a serial inventor and entrepreneur with 5 startups and 82 patents filled to date. He also plays in a charity rock band supporting the Water for Life initiative in Africa, so maybe you'll come play sometime at a HealthTO. And Tim Pauley is the manager of research and evaluation at West Park Healthcare Center. So I will say welcome to you both, and I'll let you present one after the other. I think.
Okay, what's up?
Other way.
Oh, great, thanks a lot. So it's great to be here tonight, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about our story, and then I'm going to hand it over to Tim. So the name of the company is Spectrum AI, and we provide computer vision based on deep learning models, which we take into high-risk patient populations, and we're starting with long-term care. So a little bit about our story. It starts with me. Whoop. And my other co-founder is Dr. Shantz, who's an orthopedic surgeon. And we're discussing issues related to the protection of patients and at high-risk patients in environments where there's nobody to watch what they're doing. So the story goes that we were actually talking about our our mother-in-laws, and both are in long-term care homes, and both have had issues. And we decided that, you know, basically, could we apply technology to, if not predict or prevent issues such as injuries happening unwitnessed in long-term care homes, could we do something about it? So we started looking into the marketplace and found that the population, of course, is growing very rapidly in terms of the elderly, and also healthcare workers are also growing old just as fast. And we found that falls is a $33 billion problem in North America, about $2 billion in Canada. And we also found that we needed to basically come up with some prototypes. So we used design thinking and lean startup techniques. And we did some prototypes working with Mohawk. They have the medicine development lab there. And we also got an IRAP grant for that and did some more prototypes. And then we connected with MyTax. I don't know if you know this organization, but I highly recommend you talk to them. Through them, we've gained tremendous contacts at various different academic institutions. And we've also got a $165,000 grant with them. So with that, we have started working with the University of Ontario Institute of Technology, where we did some additional machine learning pilots. And we decided that we have to bring our own scientists on. So we found Dr. Najad, and he's the world's expert in action recognition, and we're actually commercializing his PhD and his thesis. So with that, we connected up with OBio for support, and with H2I out of the University of Toronto. And we have developed a relationship also with University of Alberta, which is our farm team for machine learning people. And we created our redacted machine learning module. And then we had to have a place to actually test this, because when you're developing machine learning modules for healthcare, you have to have real patient data sets. So with that, we wanted to take our visual intelligence for healthcare module and actually test it in a live environment. We did some additional work with Sheridan, again through an IRAP grant. And we located West Park, discussed with them about becoming our sandbox. We then got a grant through Ontario Centres of Excellence using their I3 demonstration grant. And we also had to get an REB through the Toronto LIN. So that's really where we were until we met with Tim and his team, and we developed our visual intelligence for healthcare. And now I'm going to turn it over to Tim.
Thanks, Jay. Will this go directly into my presentation? Okay. So I'm going to be speaking to you as a hospital administrator and research and innovation lead. I'm particularly focusing on what we think has set up West Park as a successful environment to provide Jay's sandbox for testing Spectrum AI. So our innovation strategy is grounded deeply in our strategic plan, and we focus a lot on exemplary care, a great place to be, and bold partnerships. And I'm going to be speaking to the bold partnerships and how that has, again, created success for organizations like Jay's. So in terms of bold partnerships, we think that what we've done is created a number of conditions that have provided for the engagement of internal and external stakeholders, which provide people like Jay with the environment and the expertise to test their innovations, their technologies, particularly in the hospital environment where these organizations may have limited experience with the inner workings of the hospital. So Jay mentioned Aman. Here's Aman right here. He's working side by side with Amy McParlin, one of our behavior therapists in our ABIBS unit, Acquired Brain Injury Behavior Services. Here's Brett from Centric Health. He's providing a demonstration of a device called the Carry automated medication dispenser. And here he's working with Pearl, our clinical pharmacist, and Amy Enns, our occupational therapist, clinical practice leader. Here's another design thinking workshop that we ran with a company called Ably Medical out of Norway. We're working with them on a new bed prototype that they claim will reduce falls, pressure ulcers, and nursing injuries. The reason I've included these slides is because one of the things that we take pride in at West Park as a medium-sized organization is we have a lot of flexibility and a lot of buy-in and engagement from our staff, right from frontline staff up to our senior staff. So here, for example, and our patients. So here we have one of our patients. We have our patient engagement coordinator. We have Derek from Occupational Health. Here's the CEO of Ably Med Canada. We have our Chief Nursing Executive and Director of Professional Practice. So that'll give you a sense of the wide, broad engagement from top to bottom that we get from West Park in terms of those willing to engage with people like Jay and our other teams to demonstrate the efficacy of their devices. Earlier on this year, we were fortunate to have a visit at West Park by the Norwegian Minister of Health and the Royal Ambassador to Canada. And they just asked if they could come back a few weeks ago. So this is the Norwegian Standing Committee on Health and Care Services. And again, we had our patient involved. There's Sherry right there. So by this time, our frontline staff had kind of cleared out of the room. But again, we had our frontline staff there. We had our patients. So the innovators are able to work directly with the people who will be using their products and ideally benefiting from them. I think we're on time here. 7 minutes. Yeah, we're good. Right on time. I cut it short a little bit.
For Jay, for your initial prototype, what was the volume of data that you were using, and where did you get your initial database from?
Yeah, we started the prototype using public data sets, and then from public data sets, we started creating our own data sets. So we built a hospital room, hired actors, had scripts. And then from there, we started getting connections to actual patient rooms, so we have cameras in the rooms. And then we've also built synthetic data sets. So we keep on building bigger and bigger data sets of both actions that we want to recognize and actions that are not recognizable or abnormal. So we have found a way to build very, very small data sets using a combination of both deep learning and also traditional machine learning to basically, and then we have other techniques to take a single action and propagate it into thousands of similar actions, but just using an augmentation technique. Yeah.
One question here. So you say it's Vero-based. Does that mean the patient has to carry a camera, or?
No, there's a fixed camera in the corner, about 9 feet up in every room.
Oh, so that means it's in their living room.
It's, well, in terms of home care, it could be in the living room or the bedroom. In terms of a long-term care resident, it's right in their personal room.
Thank you.
What's the accuracy of your prediction?
Well, Tim, what's our accuracy at?
I think Detection of falls is nearly 100%, I think, at this point. The other thing we're looking at is, can we correctly identify, the flip side of that coin is, can we correctly identify things that are not falls as not falls? So for example, bending over and picking something up off the floor or laying down in a bed. And from that perspective, we're right around 95% accurate right now.
How did you mitigate for your technical carelessness in terms of the data that you were mining?
You or me?
It's kind of both. I got to ask that question in vendor in a pitch today. They wanted to know what happens to liability for, say, false negative. So this is a really tricky question because working with Tim, he's taught us a lot about sensitivity and specificity and false positive rates. So what happens is as we fine-tune our engines up to 100% sensitivity, what happens is that, yes, we see 100% of falls, but then we start seeing non-fall events. So it's a really fine line between backing it down just enough so you get the accuracy. Studies show we see a lot of medical products get FDA approval, and they're less than 85% accuracy. So we've seen anything over 90% is being classified as clinical grade. So the question becomes, we know for sure, because the nursing staff tells us in these very busy environments, they say, if there's too many false positives, they'll ignore the system. There's too many alarms going on already. So the question becomes, if we don't catch one fall in 1,000,000 or 1,000 or whatever number is where we set that final threshold, is that worth or better than the risk of not catching? You got to realize 75% of these falls today happen unwitnessed in the resident's private room. In some cases, my co-founder, Dr. Shantz, his mother-in-law was on the floor of the shower for multiple hours because it was an assisted living and they have their privacy, so they don't come in. The only reason they found out was the water was leaking out in the hallway. So yeah, it's unethical, but it's also, we work with the Toronto LIN and the REPs.
Can I just follow up on that? So I think this is a really good example where the technology is not the ends of itself, right? So anytime you look at a technology that you're going to be deploying in a clinical environment, you really have to look at it in the context of the operational environment, within the context of clinical care planning. And I just noticed Carl's back there. Carl's our director of ABIBS services. Carl meets routinely with Jay and I, as do his behavioral therapists. So again, I really want to stress the point that I was trying to make earlier about the broad and depth of the engagement that you get from the clinical staff, the administrative staff, the operations staff, because they need to take Jay's curation and make it actually work in a clinical environment. So I can't overstate the importance of having the buy-in from people like Carl at the table as you're having these discussions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.